Let's bow our heads and prepare our hearts and our minds to receive God's word in silent prayer. Now, as many of you guys, Dan was gone, so that was probably, what was he doing? So that's why the car alarm was going on. My son. Okay. Well, there you go. What is he doing? Sorry, hold on a second. Okay. Well, the band's locked. Yeah, okay. All right. Back to everybody else. Okay. Does anybody have any ibuprofen that my son can have? Great, okay. Well, when he comes along, but the doors are locked, so we can't get back in. Yeah, I do. Remember that Sunday that that big guy from the regional office came? Glad he didn't come today. That would have been embarrassing, right? Now, despite all of that with my offspring, as many of you know, my favorite play is whatever play the boys happen to be in. And it's playtime again in middle school. And the boys are both in it, and so I will have a new favorite play. But until the new one, my favorite play is still the one from last year, and that was a picture of them from Godspell. And I was going to embarrass them by showing this picture, but of course neither one of them are in the sanctuary right now because they're whatever they're doing. All right, did we find them well? Okay. This is great. Okay. But yeah, so they were both in Godspell last year, and I'm pretty sure that I've referred to that play. Okay, Butch has and Linda have some ibuprofen. Did you get it?
Yeah, I have some.
Okay, why don't you come on back in. Everybody, Daniel and Blake, ladies and gentlemen. There they are. Okay, if you think that's embarrassing, just wait.
Love and forgiveness.
It's weird. That's right.
Love and forgiveness.
There you go. But I have referred to this play quite a lot in the past year, and since I'm a proud dad, I'm pretty sure that I will keep bringing it up again for the next 50 years or so. And I still think that having William recite all of his lines from the play would make a great sermon. And so I'm going to keep working on him to do that. But today, right?
They're not really connected.
The words of Jesus, son, they are all connected. And I'll keep working on that. But in the meantime, today I want to talk about a song from the play that Daniel sang. And he sang a song about the Sermon on the Mount. And it's specifically from today's gospel lesson. So I'm going to come back to that song in a little bit, but for now I want to start by reading from Matthew chapter 5. These are verses 13 through 16 on the salt of life. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now, this is a very familiar passage. I've given children's sermons on it. I've I've written a sermon on it before a few years ago, and there are countless internet memes about it, lots of songs, lots of articles, lots of commentaries about it. But to me, it is one of those passages that you keep coming back to. It's one of those lessons that you revisit often. And I think you should revisit it often. Maybe I won't say anything brand new or shocking today, but this sermon from Jesus is about as important as it gets. And the trend in children's sermons is to use object lessons. And I try to do that from time to time. I bring in an object and I use it to grab the kids' attention. And I use it to help make my point. Sometimes it can be simple as a big bowl, like I did last Sunday, or it can be unbelievably amazing, like that time I ripped an apple in half with my bare hands. You remember that? It was amazing, seriously. Like, it was one of my proudest moments of all time. Just ripped it right in half. It was pretty cool. But I'm glad it stuck with you. But I think that this passage shows that Jesus was a true innovator. He was the innovator of object lessons. And I can just picture him standing there at the Sermon on the Mount, and he had like salt in his hands, and as he was talking, he was letting it fall from his hands. And maybe he even had a small oil lamp that he put a clay pot over it, or maybe, and I can imagine this, maybe he pulled an apple out of his robe and ripped it apart with his bare hands too, and the whole audience was in awe and wonder of his apple ripping abilities. But either way, whatever you imagine, these metaphors help us to truly understand what he was trying to tell us. So the question comes up, why does Jesus use these two words? Why does he use salt? Why does he use light to describe who his followers are and what they should do in this world? And I think that we start with the idea that Jesus meant is that us as disciples, we are to give the world flavor. We are to bring out the best taste in those around us. And let our light shine by bringing others to the faith. Now obviously in the days before refrigeration, salt was extremely valuable as a way to preserve food, preserve meat. You had to cure the meat by drying it and salting it. And so, in this way, salt was essential. Salt was essential to life. It allowed you to eat food. It allowed you to get sustenance that you needed to survive. And meat provided the protein, and salt ensured that the meat wasn't spoiled, or the meat wasn't rotten. And salt also not only does that, but it gives food flavor. Salt naturally enhances the taste. It intensifies certain flavors and it decreases others. Salt has this unique ability to make sweet things seem sweeter and bitter things less bitter. To me, Jesus was making the point that we, as his disciples, can also reduce the bitterness in the world. Bitterness with each other. Salt reduces bitterness, and we are the salt of the world. And I think I've talked about this before, but we didn't use salt growing up. That was when salt was considered really, really bad for you. I can remember on the Cosby Show, Cliff was always trying to sneak salt onto his hoagies, and Claire would always throw a fit about it. And there were all these salt substitutes. This was the era when all those salt substitutes came out. And the health experts made it seem like if you put salt on your food, then you just like instantly explode or something. So my mom, being a good, responsible cook who didn't want her family to instantly keel over, she didn't put salt on anything, absolutely nothing. That's how I grew up, no salt on anything ever. Later I came to find out I had absolutely no idea what I was missing. I can remember when I started putting salt in food, it was kind of like that Disney song, A Whole New World. Right? And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And now I use salt all the time. I put salt on salt, and I haven't exploded yet, so I think that's pretty good. But I do want to say this, especially because my mom watches these recordings. I am not ripping on my mother, okay? She was simply trying to protect us. She was trying her best to keep us safe and alive. So what she would do is she would feed us a meal with absolutely no salt and then send us outside to play lawn jarts. So she was very protective of us. But that was a different time. Now we realize that salt is okay and lawn jarts are bad. So, but the point is that salt has many, many uses. And Jesus used the metaphor again in Mark chapter 9, verse 50. He said, salt is good, but if salt loses its saltiness, how can you season it? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. Now, it only takes a little bit of salt to reduce the bitterness. And this is actually one of my favorite verses for kids. I explain to them how we live in a really big world, and there's a lot of bitterness in it. And this verse teaches me, and it teaches the kids, that it only takes a little bit of salt to take the bitterness out. And sometimes kids feel little, or sometimes kids feel unimportant, or they feel small, or that they can't make a difference. But the point is, they can, just like the salt. Kids can make a big difference in the world, and they can help drive that bitterness out. But of course, this verse is not just for kids. We all feel helpless. We all feel lost, or we all feel unimportant, or we feel overwhelmed by the bitterness in the world. And Jesus is telling us not to lose hope. He's telling us not to be deterred, not to be discouraged. Don't be daunted. He is saying that we can make a difference. And not only that, we must make a difference. We must. He doesn't say, you can be like salt. He says, you are salt. You are the salt. He's saying that you matter. And that you must be the salt. And that's an important thing to know. But it's easy to forget. It's easy to overlook. Now, whatever meaning Jesus had in mind, in all of these cases, salt is an element that is not useful by itself. We don't eat plain salt. Its value comes when it's added to other things. To be useful, we have to apply the salt to other things. Salt must be in contact with the meat to preserve it. It has to be added to the cakes and the desserts to reduce the bitterness and enhance that sweetness. It has to be applied to the road to make ice melt. And in the same way, when Jesus calls us, we are called to to witness for others, to apply ourselves to others. To be effective, we must be involved with others. And that was the main idea of my last few sermons, that we are a community, that we don't need to be isolated, that we are greater than the sum of our parts. Even the chemical makeup of salt relates to this idea. We were talking about this in my class in 4th grade just this past week, how salt is sodium chloride, but if you take those two elements in isolation, you have a big problem. I read my kids what the encyclopedia says about sodium. It says, sodium's powdered form is highly explosive in water and a poison combined and uncombined with many other elements. And chloride is also poisonous too. This is what it says about chloride. Large quantities are harmful and can induce irritation of the gastrointestinal tract, vomiting, hypernatremia, which sounds awful, respiratory distress, convulsions, and even death. So by themselves, these elements are bad. By themselves, bad. Together, good. Isolated, bad. Together, good. So once again, the point is illustrated that we are meant to be a community. We are meant to be together. And the isolation can have negative consequences. Salt isn't useful in isolation, and neither are we. When he says, you are the salt of the earth, he says, you are the salt of the earth, it isn't just for us, but to also touch the lives of everyone around us. And in the same way, light functions in order to allow us to see. Light is useful and light is effective when it's in conjunction with something else. Light by itself is not as useful in an already light room. The disco ball would have been more effective if the room was completely dark and if it was night outside. Right? Jesus says that we are the light of the world. We are the light of the world, and that means that others can see the acts of justice. Others can see the acts of righteousness. Others can see the acts of empathy that we perform. And more than that, it allows others to recognize that the cause of these actions is our God. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And if you are a follower of Jesus, living the Beatitudes, then you matter. Everyone matters. You have an important role to play because you are the salt of the earth. You can bring that distinctive flavor of God's kingdom and God's values to all life. You can make life better. You can make it a whole new world. When Jesus says you are the salt of the earth, you are the symbols of God's presence in this world. The presence of God, the symbol of God's promise. The symbol of God's promise will be embodied in those that follow God and live faithfully. Throughout history, Jesus showed us how to be salt. He showed us how to be the light. People will look to you as an example. People will look to you as an example of how to live in a way that loves God. What you do, how you live, that will be a sign of God's faithfulness. So let's go back to that song that Daniel sang in God's spell. Now I did ask him if he wanted to sing it today for all of us. He declined. And I did have a video copy of him singing it as well. But I did decide not to do that to him as well. You can see the look of relief on his face. So instead, I asked Ron, I said, Ron, should we sing this in church? So I decided to just read the lyrics today. And again, this is a Broadway show, and so there are parts that are silly and parts that are put in there just to help it rhyme. But the point of the song, I think carries through. It goes, "You are the light of the world," repeats that. But if that light is under a bushel, it's lost something kind of crucial. And it says, you've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. It goes on to say, you are the salt of the earth. But if that salt has lost its flavor, it ain't got much in its favor. You can't have that fault and be the salt of the earth. And the chorus goes, this is where everybody joins in. That part was the part where Daniel sang perfectly. Mom and I watched it yesterday. Oh, brought back all these memories. It's so sweet. The chorus says, so let your light shine before men. Let your light shine, so that they might know some kindness again. We all need help to feel fine. And the whole chorus sings, let's have some wine. And then it goes on to say, you are the city of God. But if that city's on a hill, it's kind of hard to hide it well. You've got to stay pretty in the city of God. You are the light of the world, but the tallest candlestick ain't much good without a wick. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. You've got to live right to be the light of the world. And it ends with the chorus, let your light so shine before men. Let your light so shine, so that they might know some kindness again. Now, again, in the play, it's kind of a silly song. But if you look at the words, it is spot on. And to me, that's one of the greatest things about the Word of God. It fits into everything. The Word of God has this amazing power to reach people across the board in so many different ways, which is also why Jesus uses object lessons to teach and parables to teach his ideas. But this song does completely sum up what Jesus is trying to say. And I especially like the last chorus and the last two lines, because that's where he talks about action. Jesus says, let your light shine before others. Let your light shine before others. That's an action. How do we do that? Now, it's not really, it doesn't mean that we just walk around looking all sunny, looking all saved. We could tell people how they can be shiny and light and full of light too. And maybe that would work, but that's not where Jesus puts his emphasis. He says, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Now, we've talked about this idea 2 Sundays ago when Jesus said, come and see. It's all about how you live. It's all about how you live. It's not really about what you say, it's about how you live. The song says, so that they may know kindness again. So that they might know some kindness again. Our light shines when we show kindness. And that's what I was asking the kids up here. Our light shines when we show kindness. Our light shines when we show empathy. live as light. You are proof. You are living proof of God's presence. And it's our duty to let people see it. That's who God's followers are, and that's what we are called to do. So this was one of Jesus' big object lessons: salt and light, perfect images for a perfect message. Who are the salt of the earth? Remember last week? They are the humble, the ones who mourn. They are the meek, and those who thirst after doing what is right in the world. Who are the light? Again, we go back to the Beatitudes. They are the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and those who receive abuse for standing up for what's right. These metaphors are the core teaching of the Sermon on the Mount. There is a difference between knowing God's word and doing it. We are the light of the world. We are the citizens of that town on the hill. We are the light of the world. We are the salt of the earth. How do we use that salt? How do we shine that light? Well, that's the part that is up to us. Amen. And as we prepare to sing our closing hymn, if you feel that desire to answer the call of God and answer His invitation, feel free to come to the altar and share